The Clockwork Christmas Eve. Chapter 1. The Curious Legend of Gearbell. The city of Gearbell was shrouded in the scent of steam and the sound of turning gears, a place with an enchanting charm. At its heart stood the grand Christmas Tower, a symbol of the city renowned for its annual Christmas Eve chime. When the tower's bell rang, mechanical snowflakes powered by steam would dance in the air, enveloping the entire city in a magical glow. Everyone eagerly awaited this miracle every year. But this year, something was different. The city's residents had noticed strange noises coming from the tower. The gears, which usually turned with precision, now creaked irregularly, occasionally emitting sharp metallic sounds. With the Christmas celebration fast approaching, unease began to ripple through the community. Clarice felt a pang of anxiety every time she heard those noises. At 15, she lived alone in the small workshop her late father had left behind. Her father had been a renowned clockmaker in Gearbell, but she'd had little opportunity to learn his craft before his passing. After his death, the workshop fell into disuse, its tools and blueprints gathering dust. "The tower's noises are getting worse," Clarice said to her friend Mina as they strolled through the market. Mina, the lively daughter of a baker, always had a cheerful demeanor. "Totally. My dad's worried the festival might be cancelled this year," Mina replied. Clarice frowned at the thought. A cancelled Christmas festival was unheard of in this city. If the tower stopped, it would disrupt the city's steam supply, affecting everything. The Christmas Tower was more than just a symbol, it was essential to the city's survival. That evening, Clarice found herself poring over old blueprints in her father's workshop, her thoughts consumed by the tower's malfunction. As she sorted through the papers, one particular design caught her eye. It was a schematic of the Christmas Tower's internal structure, depicting intricate gear arrangements she'd never seen before. "Why haven't I seen this blueprint before?" she murmured. Written in her father's familiar hand were the words, "The Wishing Gear." The moment she read it, a spark of realization ignited in her mind. Could this be connected to the tower's troubles? This clue, left by her father, might be the key to solving the mystery. That night, Clarice packed a small bag with tools and resolved to head for the tower. Standing before the tower, she was awestruck by its grandeur. Adorned with intricate metalwork, the towering doors seemed to silently resist her presence. Yet she didn't falter. She reached for the door, but just as her hand touched it, a voice called out from behind. Planning to go inside the tower. Startled, she turned to find a boy she didn't recognize. He wore black goggles pushed up onto his forehead and clutched a strange metal part in his hand. The boy flashed a sly grin. "My name's Finn. Not every day you see someone like you here." And so, Clarice and Finn's peculiar meeting marked the beginning of their journey, a journey that would uncover the hidden secrets of the Christmas Tower and the mysterious power of the Wishing Gear. Chapter 2. The Secret of the Gears. The tower doors swung open more easily than Clarice had expected, revealing an interior filled with the smell of steam and metal. It was strangely warm, exuding an atmosphere both inviting and foreboding. Clarice glanced cautiously at Finn, who had slipped through the door as if he belonged there, his movements fluid and confident. "Who are you, really?" Clarice asked. "Just an adventurer collecting spare parts," Finn replied with a shrug. "But you're different. You've got a purpose here, don't you?" Clarice didn't answer. Instead, she scanned the towering walls, where colossal gears turned slowly, their movements stuttering at times with a grinding noise. A spiral staircase wound upward, beckoning them higher. As they climbed, a peculiar camaraderie began to form between the two. Finn's light-hearted remarks occasionally broke the tense silence, and his knowledge of machinery intrigued Clarice. "The gears in this tower are custom-made. You wouldn't find parts this precise in any ordinary workshop," Finn remarked, running his hand along the cold metal. "My father designed these," Clarice said quietly, pulling a blueprint from her pocket and handing it to him. Finn's eyes widened as he studied the diagram. This isn't just any gear. This is the wishing gear." "The wishing gear," Clarice echoed, her voice filled with confusion. "I've only heard rumors," Finn admitted. "They say this gear holds a special power, one that grants wishes. But if it's misused, it could destroy the entire mechanism it's part of." Clarice thought of her father and his possible reasons for creating such a thing. She followed Finn further up the tower, her determination growing with every step. The sound of hissing steam grew louder, and the air became thicker with heat and moisture. Finally, they reached the control room in the middle of the tower. It was a dense maze of gears, valves, and levers, all interconnected in a dizzying network. At the center of the room was an empty space where the wishing gear was supposed to fit. "This must be the source of the problem," Clarice muttered, comparing the blueprint to the empty slot. Finn wandered over to a corner of the room and picked up a shard of broken metal from the floor. His brows furrowed as he inspected it. This isn't just a random piece of debris. Someone deliberately removed the wishing gear and damaged it. A chill ran down Clarice's spine. Someone wants to stop the tower. Looks like it, Finn said grimly. To fix this, we'll need a specific kind of material. The old, forgotten workshop on the south edge of Gearbell might have what we need. As they exited the control room and descended the stairs, Clarice noticed the city's atmosphere had changed. The once steady hum of the steamworks was faltering, and the flickering streetlights cast eerie shadows on the walls. "We have to move quickly," Clarice said, her voice firm with urgency. But as they reached the base of the tower, a figure stepped into their path. Draped in a dark cloak, with a mechanical arm gleaming faintly in the dim light, the man fixed them with a cold smile. "I didn't expect you to make it this far," he said, his voice low and menacing. "But you won't go any further. No one who meddles with the secrets of this tower can be allowed to leave." Clarice and Finn exchanged a tense glance, their resolve hardening. Ahead of them lay another trial, and they would have to confront this new threat head-on. Chapter 3: The Forgotten Workshop. The cloaked man stood before them, his mechanical arm glinting ominously in the dim light. Steam hissed softly from his joints, and his cold smile never wavered. The quiet of the tower's entrance only heightened the tension. "What do you want?" Clarice demanded, gripping her toolkit tightly. "What I want," the man echoed with a dark chuckle. "To make sure this tower's power belongs to me alone. That's all you need to know." Finn narrowed his eyes. "So it was you. You removed the wishing gear. But why?" The man didn't answer. Instead, he raised his mechanical arm, and with a sharp motion, a blade of steam lashed toward them. Clarice and Finn jumped back just in time, the attack slicing through the air where they had been standing. "Run!" Finn shouted, grabbing Clarice's hand as they bolted into the dark alleys of Gearbell. They finally stopped in a shadowed corner of the city, their breath coming in ragged gasps. Clarice clutched her side, still shaken by the encounter. "Who is he? Why is he after the wishing gear?" "I don't know," Finn admitted, his expression grim. "But if he's willing to sabotage the tower and attack us, he's dangerous. We need to stay ahead of him. And we still need to fix the gear," Clarice said, her voice steady despite her trembling hands. "Let's head to the Forgotten Workshop." The southern edge of Gearbell was a desolate place, far from the bustling heart of the city. Rusted buildings leaned against one another like forgotten relics, and the air was thick with the smell of decayed metal. At the end of a narrow street stood the Forgotten Workshop, its weathered sign barely legible, "Gearsmith's Workshop." Clarice pushed open the creaking door. Inside, the workshop was eerily silent. Piles of dusty tools and broken machines lay abandoned, but in the center of the room, something gleamed, a pristine gear resting on a workbench, untouched by time. "This is it," Finn exclaimed, rushing over to pick up the gear. "This might be enough to replace the wishing gear." Clarice scanned the room, her brow furrowed. Why is it so well maintained? Everything else here is falling apart. Before Finn could respond, a low rumble echoed from the workshop's depths. From the shadows, two red lights flickered to life. "Stay alert," Finn warned as a massive figure stepped into the dim light. A towering guardian automaton, powered by steam and lined with sharp metal plates, emerged. Its arms ended in a giant drill and a claw, and its single red eye glowed menacingly. The battle with the guardian. The automaton advanced slowly, steam hissing from its joints as it locked its gaze on Clarice and Finn. "We have to stop it," Clarice shouted, reaching for her tools. "Got it. Look for a way to shut it down," Finn called back, darting to the side to draw the machine's attention. The automaton lunged, its claw crashing down inches from Finn. Clarice spotted an old control panel on the wall, wires dangling from its rusted surface. "There," she shouted. Finn nodded and sprinted toward the panel. Clarice, meanwhile, worked quickly to distract the automaton. She threw a wrench at its eye, causing it to hesitate for a brief moment before refocusing on her. Finn reached the control panel and yanked it open. "It's connected to the steam supply. If I can reverse the flow." "Hurry." Clarice dodged another swing from the automaton, her heart pounding. Finn's hands flew over the controls, twisting valves and crossing wires. With a loud hiss, the steam pressure reversed, and the automaton shuddered violently before its movement slowed. A final burst of steam escaped, and the machine collapsed in a heap of metal. A shadow returns. The room fell silent once more. Clarice and Finn exchanged relieved smiles as they stood over the disabled automaton. "That was too close," Finn said, wiping sweat from his brow. Clarice picked up the gear from the workbench, its polished surface glinting in the dim light. "At least we have what we need now." But as they turned to leave, a chilling voice echoed through the workshop. "You didn't think it would be that easy, did you?" The cloaked man stepped out of the shadows, his mechanical arm whirring ominously. "I admire your persistence, but this is where your journey ends." Clarice and Finn froze, their hearts racing as they faced him once again. Their escape from the workshop and their mission to save the tower would require every ounce of their courage and ingenuity. Chapter 4: The Wishing Gear. The cloaked man stood at the workshop entrance, his mechanical arm gleaming faintly in the dim light. Behind him, the broken remains of the guardian automaton lay in silence. Steam hissed softly from the man's joints as his cold smile deepened. "That gear you're holding, you don't know what you're tampering with," he said, his voice a low, menacing growl. Clarice held the gear tightly, her knuckles widening. "This gear belongs in the tower. It's meant to save the city, not to be hoarded by someone like you." The man's laughter was sharp and bitter. "Save the city? Is that what you think? This tower isn't just a machine, it's a vessel for something far more dangerous." Clarice and Finn exchanged a wary glance, but neither backed down. "What do you mean?" Finn demanded, stepping forward. The man gestured toward the towering machinery in the workshop. "This tower doesn't run on ordinary steam power. Its energy comes from the hopes and prayers of the city's people. The wishing gear is the heart of it all, channeling their desires into motion. But such a system is unstable. One misplaced wish, one moment of weakness, and the entire city could collapse under the weight of its own dreams." Clarice's eyes widened. "You're lying." "Am I?" The man raised his mechanical arm, its gears whirring menacingly. "I removed the wishing gear to prevent disaster. But if you insist on restoring it, I'll have no choice but to stop you." A battle in the workshop. Before Clarice or Finn could react, the man lunged forward, his arm transforming into a blade that cut through the air with terrifying precision. Clarice dodged to the side, clutching the gear protectively, while Finn scrambled to find a weapon among the scattered tools. "Clarice, get to the control panel," Finn shouted. Clarice nodded and sprinted toward the wall where the steam controls were located. The man's blade struck the ground where she had been standing a moment before, sparks flying. "Do you think you can save this city?" the man sneered, turning his attention to Finn. Finn grabbed a heavy wrench and swung it at the man, who easily blocked the attack with his mechanical arm. The force sent Finn stumbling backward, but he quickly regained his footing. "Clarice, now!" Finn yelled, drawing the man's focus away from her. Clarice reached the control panel and worked quickly to reverse the steam flow. Her hands trembled as she twisted the valves, the sound of the battle raging behind her. "Almost there," she muttered. The man, realizing her intent, turned toward her. "Stop that," he bellowed, raising his blade. Finn acted without hesitation, throwing himself at the man. The impact was enough to throw the man off balance, giving Clarice the precious second she needed. With a final twist of the valve, the steam pressure surged, and the room filled with a deafening hiss. The sudden burst of steam disoriented the man, forcing him to retreat. The gear's power awakens. As the steam settled, Clarice stepped forward, the wishing gear in her hands glowing faintly. The man's expression shifted from anger to shock. "That light, no," he whispered. "The gear, it's resonating with you." The wishing gear began to vibrate gently, as if responding to Clarice's determination. Finn, bruised but unyielding, moved to her side. "What's happening?" he asked. "I don't know," Clarice replied, her voice steadied despite her awe. "But it feels alive." The man staggered back, his mechanical arms sparking. "You don't understand what you're dealing with. That gear isn't just a tool, it's a conduit for the city's collective will. If you misuse it, you'll doom us all." Clarice's gaze hardened. The gear isn't meant to be controlled by one person. It belongs to everyone in this city. That's why it must be returned to the tower. Her words silenced the man. For a moment, his expression softened, as if he were reconsidering. But then he turned away, disappearing into the shadows with a parting threat: "If you fail, don't say I didn't warn you." The journey to the tower. The workshop fell silent again, save for the faint hum of the wishing gear in Clarice's hands. She and Finn exchanged a look, their shared determination unspoken but clear. "We have to get back to the tower," Clarice said. "And we have to be ready," Finn added. "He won't make it easy for us." With the wishing gear in their possession, the two set out into the city. The streets of Gearbell were growing darker, the flickering streetlights barely holding on. The tower loomed in the distance, its gears still stuttering. As they approached, a sense of urgency gripped them. The fate of the city rested on their shoulders, and the final trial awaited them within the heart of the Christmas Tower. Chapter 5: The Bell of Wishes. The city of Gearbell was teetering on the edge of collapse. With the tower's gears faltering, the steam-powered systems that sustained the city were failing. Streetlights flickered, heating systems stalled, and the once bustling streets were shrouded in uneasy silence. On Christmas Eve, the city should have been alive with celebration, but darkness and dread hung heavy in the air. Clarice and Finn finally returned to the Christmas Tower, the glowing wishing gear securely in Clarice's grasp. They pushed open the heavy doors and stepped inside. The interior was louder than ever, the grinding and groaning of malfunctioning gears echoing ominously. The spiral staircase loomed before them, twisting toward the top where the tower's control room awaited. "This is it," Clarice said, gripping her toolkit tightly. Finn nodded. No turning back now. Let's finish this. The final ascent. The two climbed the stairs, their breaths growing heavy. The higher they went, the more oppressive the heat and steam became. When they reached the top, the massive control mechanism came into view, its intricate network of gears and pipes still struggling to function. At the center of the machinery was an empty slot, where the wishing gear belonged. "This is where it goes," Clarice said, stepping toward the mechanism. But before she could insert the gear, a familiar voice froze them in their tracks. "That's far enough." The cloaked man emerged from the shadows, his mechanical arm gleaming and his eyes burning with determination. He raised his hand, his voice colder than ever. "You don't understand what you're about to do. If you restore that gear, you'll unleash power the city can't control. I won't let you make that mistake." The final battle. Before Clarice could respond, the man launched an attack. His mechanical arm extended into a blade, slicing through the air with deadly precision. Finn threw himself between the man and Clarice, wielding a wrench he'd picked up along the way. "Keep going, Clarice. I'll hold him off," Finn shouted. Clarice hesitated for a moment before nodding. She turned her attention to the control mechanism, carefully aligning the wishing gear with the empty slot. The man's attacks grew more frantic. He swung at Finn, who dodged as best he could, using every ounce of strength to counter with quick strikes. Sparks flew as metal clashed against metal. "Do you even know what you're unleashing?" the man snarled, his voice rising in desperation. "This isn't just about saving the city. It's about controlling its future." Clarice ignored his words, her hands trembling as she placed the gear into its slot. The moment it clicked into place, the entire mechanism began to glow. The gears around it started to turn, slowly at first, then faster and faster. The power of wishes. As the wishing gear spun, the tower trembled. A brilliant light filled the room, illuminating every corner of the control room and beyond. Clarice shielded her eyes as the glow intensified. The man staggered back, his mechanical arm sparking uncontrollably. "No, this can't be happening," he muttered, his voice barely audible over the hum of the gears. The light seemed to resonate with something deep within the city. Outside, the bell at the top of the tower began to chime, its sound echoing through the streets. It was a deep, resonant tone, one that seemed to carry warmth and hope with every note. The people of Gearbell, who had been huddled in darkness, looked up as the sound washed over them. The bell's chime was followed by a miraculous sight. Snowflakes, made of shimmering steam, began to fall from the sky. They glowed softly, illuminating the city in a warm, magical light. A Christmas miracle. Clarice and Finn stood at the top of the tower, gazing out at the transformed city. The wishing gear had restored the tower to its full power, and the entire city glowed with life once more. "You did it," Finn said, his voice filled with awe. "No," Clarice replied, holding her father's old tool kit close to her chest. "We did it. All of us, this city, its people. It's their wishes that brought this miracle." Behind them, the cloaked man lay slumped against a wall, his mechanical arms sparking faintly. He watched the snow-like steam fall over the city, his expression unreadable. "I see now," he murmured. "The gear doesn't belong to me, or to anyone. It belongs to them." For the first time, his voice held no malice. Instead, it carried a sense of quiet resignation. He stood, glancing once more at Clarice and Finn before disappearing into the shadows. Epilogue: A new beginning. With the city saved, Clarice returned to her father's workshop, determined to keep his legacy alive. She reopened the shop, her skills as a clockmaker growing with each passing day. Finn, ever the adventurer, decided to set out on a new journey, though he promised to visit often. As for the wishing gear, it remained in the tower, its power a reminder of the city's unity and resilience. Every year, on Christmas Eve, the bell would chime again, and the magical steam snow would fall, bringing light and hope to Gearbell. And so, the legend of the clockwork Christmas Eve became a story told for generations, a tale of courage, determination, and the power of shared wishes.